Hey there. Have you ever felt like you're just pushing a giant rock uphill? You're giving it your absolute all, but you're just getting more and more exhausted? Well, today we're going to dive into a really powerful framework for moving beyond that burnout. It's all about shifting from pure self-reliance to working with what the source material calls a divine senior partner. Let's explore what that actually looks like.
So you've got two paths, right? On one hand, there's the path of self-reliance. It's all about constant effort, that feeling of struggle and just pushing. And we all know where that leads, burnout. But the alternative is this idea of a divine partnership. Now, it's not about less work, but a totally different kind of work. One that's defined by harmony and flow, where you're walking an illuminated path. It's really the difference between trying to force your way through a dark room and just having the lights turned on for you.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we're going to talk about moving beyond self-reliance. Then, we'll unpack the DIEN cycle itself. We'll do a deep dive into two really key parts, the ritual of receiving and the magic of imagery. And then, we'll wrap it all up by looking at what success without burnout can actually feel like.
Okay, let's start with the core problem. The modern world, it just screams at us that sheer willpower and hustle are the only ways to get ahead. But what if that whole model has a built-in ceiling? What if our own strength is actually a really limited resource?
This right here, this is the fundamental shift. It's not about giving up or stopping your efforts, not at all. It's about recontextualizing them. So instead of being the solo CEO trying to figure everything out on your own, you become the junior partner, and you're executing a vision guided by a much more experienced senior partner. I mean, that simple change in perspective is the key to unlocking a whole new way of working.
So how do we actually do this? It's not just about, wishing for some help. There's a practical framework, a repeatable system, and it's called the DIEN cycle. Let's break it down.
At its core, the DIEN cycle is designed to harmonize your effort, your earthly action, with heavenly direction. It's a way to turn the daily grind into a form of sacred practice. It's all about creating a consistent, reliable feedback loop with your divine senior partner.
Now, the cycle has 4 distinct steps, and trust me, the order is absolutely crucial. It all starts with receiving direction. From there, you move to imagery creation, where you build a mental blueprint. Then, and only then, comes execution, the action phase. And it all closes with the narrative report, which is your accountability step. Each one flows right into the next.
First up is D for direction. This step is all about stillness. It's about pausing the frantic doing so you can actually listen. Before you can act with real power, you need to know what to act on. Think of it like receiving your orders from headquarters.
So once you have that direction, you move to I for imagery creation. Now, this is a super powerful step that most of us skip. It's about building a crystal clear picture of the successful outcome in your mind before you take a single physical step. You literally see it as already done. With the direction received and that mental blueprint sealed, now you move to E for execution. Now, what's really cool here is that this isn't frantic, stressful action. It's focused, it's confident action because it's backed by divine energy. You're not just working, you're converting that heavenly inspiration into tangible, earthly results. And finally, N for narrative report. This might be the most overlooked and yet the most critical step of the whole thing. This is your report back to the senior partner. You account for how you executed the direction you were given. This simple act of accountability builds trust and, crucially, it unlocks the next and often bigger cycle of direction.
All right, let's zoom in on that first step, direction, because honestly, if you don't get this part right, the rest of the cycle can't even begin. This is all about what we'll call the ritual of receiving. Think about this for a second. How often do we ask for guidance? We pray, we meditate, we ask for help, and then we immediately get up and get busy. It's like we send our request and then hang up the phone before we can even get a reply.
So the key to fixing that is a practice called the writing ritual. First, you have to understand that getting direction requires readiness. It means you don't just ask, you wait with intent. Second, you have to record everything, even the faintest whisper or the tiniest spark of an idea. Write it down in a journal. And that leads to the third point. When your senior partner sees that you're faithfully recording even the small stuff, that divine trust deepens, and the flow of direction just gets stronger and clearer.
Okay, so once you have that direction, we get to move into the really fun part, the magic of imagery creation.
This is about taking that spark of an idea and building it into a complete, vivid vision.
I love this quote because it just captures the whole thing perfectly. You secure the victory mentally and spiritually before you ever make a physical move. You've already experienced the successful outcome in the theater of your own mind. This isn't just wishful thinking. It's more like mental and spiritual engineering.
A great way to think about this is like flipping switches in a mental control room. You consciously decide to turn certain mindsets off, like perfectionism, that fear of not getting it exactly right. And at the same time, you turn other switches on, like pure, undiluted faith that with divine help, this is not only possible, but it's already accomplished. You are actively rewiring your brain for success.
And this leads to a pretty profound insight. The physical work, that's actually the easy part. When a project is fully completed and sealed in your mind with total clarity and faith, its realization here on Earth is almost a formality. The true creation has already happened.
Okay, let's bring this all home. How does this cycle actually help us get that success we want without the burnout we started with? Well, it requires a complete redefinition of what success even means.
I mean, just look at the contrast here. The old model of brute force willpower, look at that. It generates a massive amount of stress for smaller and smaller returns. But the DIEN cycle, it leads to sustainable, even exponential growth. Because you're not powered by your own limited battery anymore, you're plugged into a limitless source.
This slide for me is so important. Our old definition of a successful day is usually, I finished my to-do list. The new definition of success is, I completed the DIEN cycle. It's a huge shift from being task-oriented to being alignment-oriented.
And this is the ultimate takeaway. Success isn't just about whether the project launched perfectly or if you hit some specific metric. The real success is completing the loop. If you received direction, created the imagery, executed your part, and made it to the narrative report, you have won. Because that report is what unlocks the next level.
So, that leaves us with one final, really powerful question to consider. Not, what's next on my to-do list, but rather, what is the next direction my senior partner has waiting for me? The only way to find out is to start the cycle, ask, and then wait, listen, and be ready to write it down.